Okay, and I will record this little bit and pop it on the website, even though most of you are here, just in case you don't get it, and we can see how that kind of process works as well, of teaching something here and putting the recording up. I'm going to share my screen using the Google one because this works best. So I've got patterns, this should do it. Share. Okay, so hopefully you should see my screen being shared. Don't worry about the video. I'm going to put myself in the corner so that I can record nicely. Okay, so what we doing now? Yes.
So my Wi-Fi went off.
No, it's still on the. It still needs to be done, bro. Okay, are you back on now? If I can hear you. I'm standing near the shower, isn't it?
Guys, turn your mics off.
Whoever's standing in the shower, please can you switch your mic off? Okay, so I'm gonna run through this quickly because this is in the book, and I don't think it requires a lot of explanation. But it's also just to get us into kind of the idea of how this is gonna go, and really to check. Can you see what's happening on the screen here? Is that a good one? I can probably make life even better and say you don't need to see my camera. And here we go. So I'm going to look at continue with patterns. And I'm going to assume that you've watched the first bit about these patterns. And if not, you don't need it for now. But there's the explanation, and the videos going to be on the website above. So if we've got patterns that aren't as simple, and we've got something that says, let's say it goes, let's learn how to use this program, 3, and then I'm going to add that, 7, and then 12, 18, and I say continue the pattern. It doesn't look like a simple pattern where we're just adding the same amount each time. So those are your basic patterns, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and they carry on quite easily. But it might be doing something different. And each of these patterns, you're just going to have to look at and define the rule yourself. So you start looking at it and going, well, 3 to 7, the most basic thing we can look at is what happens if we're just adding. And we're not always going to be adding, but say now we're just adding. How did we get from 3 to 7? We added 4. How did we get from 7 to 12? We added 5. How did we get from 12 to 18? We added 6. We don't know that the pattern definitely continues this way, but you can describe it in this way to say, well, I'm going to describe this pattern as what it's doing is we've started at 3 and we've added 4, and we're going to add one more each time. So if I were to describe it, that would be a great way to describe it. Start at 3, add 4, then add 1, let's do it like this, 1 more every time. Because if you gave me that explanation, I can keep going. Go add 4, so I've added 4, then add 1 more every time. Plus 5, plus 6, okay, so I must surely just be plusing 7 here, and I'll get 25, and then I'd add 8, and I get to 33. So all that these patterns are, you need to figure out that it's going to be something a little bit different, not just adding the same amount. So you could even be doing something. I'm going to do one more example, then ask if there are any questions, and then that's going to be our lesson for today. So let's say that we are given something like, let's start at 4, and we're going to move to minus 12. Then we're going to move to 36. Now this looks like we're going between positives and negatives and positives, and there's no ways we're just adding slightly more or less each time. But what happens if we're multiplying? So how do we get from 4 to negative 12? Well, it was a positive and we've got a negative, so it must be a negative. 4 times what gives you 12? Negative 3. So we've times by negative 3. How do we get from negative 12 to 36? Well, from a negative to a positive, if we're multiplying, we must have multiplied by a negative. 12 times what gives us 36? Negative 3. So that would be enough to say, let's say that our rule is that we're multiplying by negative 3 each time. So if we were to explain that, we could say, where we're starting at, let's start at 4. Then multiply by negative 3 every time. And there's our rule, and therefore you could work out the next one after that, and so on. So you're going, okay, well, it's going to be a negative, and I'll leave you to figure out what 36 times 3 is. But we just know that the rule's going to be a bit more complicated than in the first patterns, where the first patterns you just added the same number, whether it was a positive number or a negative number, and you wanted to explain that, started to add 2 every time. That's kind of the explanation. Whereas in these patterns that come up in exercise 2, the rule's a bit different. It might involve square numbers, it might multiply by negatives, it might multiply and then add. So they're just going to be a little bit more difficult. So all you need to do is try and look for that rule. If you haven't done exercise 1 and looked at that video, please look at that before you do exercise 2 and then go through. You've got the explanation here. As I said, I'll put this video up so that you've got this one for reference as well. And this document, let's check that what I said actually holds true. It's saving. We go to our website, and no, I'm not showing you the website at the moment, but let's go patterns, and that should have uploaded automatically. So in our website, the PDF that's on the website, you can look at that and it will update with all the scribbles that I've done today. So you don't have to sit there worrying about quickly screenshotting or something like that. So that's our lesson for today. And then I'm going to ask if you've got any questions. Otherwise, you may go. Yes.
Mango has load shedding, so she had to leave the call because the Wi-Fi is not working.
Perfect. I completely understand that people are going to come and go for reasons like that. And I'm going to trust that if you do leave, then it's because of something like that. Not that you've gone off because you want to quickly get a cup of tea or coffee. Likewise, you don't have to ask if you need to go to the bathroom. If you're bursting, then just go. I'm going to trust that we're all going to do our best. And yeah, load shedding, Wi-Fi going down, these are all realities. So yeah, thanks for letting me know though.